Going to continue from where I stopped yesterday. I didn't do anything yet, so. Hey, what's up? So I'm gonna think about what is the best way to do this. So probably I'm going to just copy I'm gonna implement the same constructor. Probably the easiest thing to do is just to do exactly the same thing. And then, so do exactly the same thing when it comes to the constructor. And then just inherit from the class first, to see if it's gonna work. So inherit from the class and then just change the values of the initialization. And the problem is if I inherit from the class, it's going to initialize with the values that already has there. I think should task first should just inherit from this class here. So as far as I understand now, this is the class that is used to create the floating value, the component that is going to allow you to customize a floating point or a floating value, floating member variable from a class on the editor. So editor properties. Yeah, the thing is, I don't think on the module I have. I'm gonna have to change. If I inherit from the class, I might have to change the level of the module of the initialization there. But I think it's probably the easiest thing to do is to test to see if I can just include this here, and then I just inherit from the node there. Because what I'm trying to do is just to do basically like have as a baseline basically the same components that I have on the editor, and then if I want to change later, because they already have the GUI elements in the way that I want should have. Because basically what I'm trying to do is just to allow customization for the whatever I put there on the screen on the app, and to also connect everything with the visualization, like the physics simulation. So I think having, because they already spent a bunch of time creating, and they obviously created the engine, so they understand very well how it works. I think it makes a lot of sense to just implement what they implemented as a baseline, but I'm probably gonna have to change the way that they implement. So I'm just trying to think about what is the best way to go about. Because what I'm gonna do, I think eventually, is to instead of using this class, I just change whatever I need to change so it works with the stuff that I have there. It's basically going to be the values, I think, the main difference. So it's the initialization of the components, because here they initialize based on the values here, and I think probably, and obviously the functions are going to be different as well, because I think these functions are related to changing the property that they have on the editor there. Also, these functions here, it seems that they are from the control node, and they get theme settings from the editor, I think. From the project settings, probably. Or maybe not. Editor settings, probably. But I think that the control node has functionality to set up the thing, so I can test with that later. And I think here they are directly interacting with the low level thing, which is the rendering system. Because this R&D, I think, is resource ID. And I think they probably make calls to the viewports. I'm not really sure if this is the viewport, but it looks like that they are like drawing directly, which obviously the other classes are going to do, but I think that, yeah, if you use the normal nodes, it's going to be abstracted away from you, I think. Hey, what's up? So yeah, they use the rendering server directly. On the grab as item. Right. Well. I'm gonna close the other stuff because it's not relevant. Yeah, probably just editor node, because editor node has but I guess I can look into I can just write down the file, the line here. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna close everything except the stuff that I'm working on right now, so it's not confusing there. Right down here. I can't really see. No, so someone's asking if I tried Qt framework. I just looked into, yeah, I think I did a Udemy course on it, or one or two, something like that. So like I just watched a bunch of videos, but I just didn't like in general how it was. But I know that it's probably the most used, I think, on C++ for applications. So I think OBS is built. I think OBS is built with Qt, but I don't know very well. But I just didn't like the way that it is, just superficially based on what I've seen from videos, but I never tried to build anything with it. And based on all the research that I did, I think Godot's probably the best option to build stuff from like my perspective and background and what I'm trying to do. Because all the other stuff, it seems that I don't like the way intuitively, either is closed source, or I don't like the way that they design things. It seems very overly complicated. And Godot, like, although there are some parts on Godot that seem more complicated than they should be, I think overall is very simple and easy to understand for the like amounts of complexity that it has already. So So I'm gonna close this one, I'm gonna close the other stuff. I think just editor property. Is stuff related to and the main entry points on this file as well for the attributes. So the main ones is float, and then after I figure the float out, I'm going to search for the checkbox. I think those are the two ones, and the checkbox I think probably what I'm going to implement, because I don't really care about implementing that. It's just more about like having it set up so that I can it's easier to implement later for other stuff. So I'm just gonna, because like I said, I'm gonna change the functionality. I don't think I'm gonna do stuff like this. Yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do yet, so yeah, probably the node drag is interesting. Yeah, but node drag I don't need anymore because I think it's easier to handle like on Godot because of the nature of the inputs and the camera. So yeah, but that's next thing I want. So I'm just gonna implement the floats or the range here, the way that they implement, and then the checkbox. Then maybe selection is also. Yeah, probably I should have selection, even though I'm probably not gonna use now. Or maybe I should try to implement it already. So because this, so I should try and implement this now, I think. I do know they have a color picker there, but it's after you set up properties on the material, I think. So after you pick a material, on some parts there's a color picker. So I should probably do that. Because the tough thing is that yeah, I don't think I can go based on what they did for selecting, like for having a general approach to selecting what GUI elements you use depending on the type of the property that they have in the function there, because that part's going to depend a lot on what you want to do, I think, because they are always going to use the class DB. I'm not really sure if I want to do that because the connection that I want is different. So I think it's probably, I think I should probably try to get or create the components of the main properties, and then I can just reuse them later. Yeah, that's probably what I'm gonna do. So just the slider, the check, and the selection, I think, and the color picker. So I think once I figure those ones, then I can just reuse them for everything. And the main difference is gonna be the way that the functionality is connected with everything else. But yeah, this is the main thing that I'm not really sure what is the best way to do it. Like if I should do it in the same way that they are doing there, because it makes sense. Like, because for this specific thing, for the edges, for example, I do want to just put something there that allows you to customize the edge and the nodes in the exact same way that they have on the editor. So you can see the changes. But I'm not really sure if it makes sense to implement exactly the way that they did it there on the editor, or if it's better to try to change stuff. So probably I think the easiest thing to do is just to try to build this, and then essentially what I'm doing is just putting this on the class DB. Then open the executable and try to open this from the editor. Just see what is gonna show there. Because I'm not changing anything, it's just gonna be, it might be a problem because of the Oh, here, it's here. So obviously what I can do is just change for from private to protected certification here. Let me think about this shit. I think it will make it easier after the first thing that I convert, just to think about whether or not I should try to get create a class so I have an approach. So this essentially would be the custom physics class, I think. Actually, it wouldn't be a custom physics, but it would be another class that I create, which would be very similar to the ones that they have. That it would be a class just to, whenever you want to implement something that changes a property of the whatever is showing there, I would use that class, and then I would just change the state of the class so that it reflects whatever object I have there. So it might be better to just do it, like I can change. So it looks like it is compiling now. So if I can just do the module without having to compile the editor, and I can just do these classes inheriting stuff from the editor, I think that's probably the better thing to do. Because it might make more sense to have access to the class DB. Like the thing is, I'm not really sure if like normal games or applications or whatever, they have access to the class DB as well. I think that they probably do. Like, yeah, I think anything that you build on Godot is gonna have access to the class DB, because GDScript is gonna use the class DB to translate things. So I don't think it's a bad thing. So the downside of having to compile with the editor then is obviously that you're gonna compile a bunch of stuff that you're not gonna use. So if I can do it like this, where I'm just using like specific classes from the editor, then like I can start with that as a baseline on these classes. So I just basically inherit from the class. And so maybe it might make more sense to... the main difference is when you have situations like this, where you want to customize something that is not parts of the, like, that is not a class from Godot, let's say. Like that, like, so I'm not directly trying to change based on the class DB, which is the case with the graph 3D there. But I think so I should probably have like two, instead of, no, but I do need to change, because I both want to have the ability to be able to use the way that they made it look there on like the slider and stuff like that on things that are outside of classes from Godot. So anything that you're gonna interact with visualization there, I think it makes sense to have the parts separated from the overall class, but it also makes sense to have a class that is going to be basically the same thing that they do on the editor here. I think that's what I'm going to do. So like just copy like the entire class that they use to manage this. But it might not be possible because like this one has to be coupled with this stuff here. That's the main thing. So if I can separate, yeah, I think what essentially I have to do is just separate the state management. So I have to figure out Like I have to decouple the editor from the stuff here, so that I have a class that I can just put any class, any type, and then based on the type that I put there, is going to allow me to change the properties of the class. Oh, I didn't do, but I don't think I need to do bind methods. Yeah, so essentially I didn't do anything differently there. Just inheriting from the class here. So I think obviously the only thing that makes sense is that there's something going on here that is going to mess up. So I'm gonna have to change, I think. I'm just trying to clarify what is the best approach to do this. Because I think that I need both, like I said, to change these classes separated from the overall thing. And I might also need the other one. But the easiest way might be to like decouple one class at a time. But I'm probably gonna use class DB anyway. So it might be easier to try to change it from the top, let's say, from the like main class that they use to change anything, then see if that one works. So I think that it might be a problem there because of the way that the class works, because it's connected with everything else. So like the issue is that they don't put this, most of these classes they don't put on the class DB because they are just from the editor. So obviously I assume that this one is going to be related to the other classes, and when you try to get the state from the other classes that are related to the editor, it doesn't work. So I'm not really sure. I think I'm gonna be forced to change one at a time exactly because of that. So I think that there is no easier way to convert. I'm just gonna have to convert one at a time. So I'll convert the ones that I need. Then once I have all the ones that I need, then I study the other one that is a generic one that is gonna interact with class DB. Then once I understand the functionality, I can change so that I'm probably gonna do a flowchart there on ScalarDraw to think about this. But if I'm gonna convert it in the generic way, it might be very annoying because I'm gonna have to do it for all of them. The challenge is the state management of the class, because the state management that the class has is gonna be correlated with the application you wanna do, I think. Not when it comes to changing the state of the classes, but how the classes will relate with the engine, I think. Maybe it's always the same because they're just using, but I think like the problem is the interface there, because the way that it works on the other one when you're adding a node, for example, on the left there, is gonna have a bridge at some point between the whatever shows up on the GUI and the functionality used on the scene to create the actual scene. So, like, I think that's where it is gonna get complicated. So obviously, what I can do there is just let me see which one. So this inherits from editor property. It's probably a control node. So this is the approach that I was gonna do. I was thinking about implementing this first, like inheriting first, just to see how it looks here. Then if I managed to do that, then I was gonna just see if I can change the values, or like put functions here, change the values to see how it changes there. But since I'm probably not gonna be able to do this because of this thing of the editor, I think it probably makes more sense to try to find the class that is like the highest level that I have here, that is still a part of the class DB. And then I just copy the state, like one state by one. So copy the member variables, then copy some functions, and just test to see what it looks like, and then just incorporate more stuff. But I'm also thinking more about some of the overall, like, I think the most challenging part is figuring out or understanding how to couple the two. Like how to disconnect them, the functionality from the inspector, so that it works on an application, but design in a way that is not coupled to a specific thing, I think. But I think that's probably gonna get easier once after the first one that I do. So I think that probably the container is the highest level one. So GUI container. GUI container. So obviously I can try to, I'm just gonna try to compile this now and see if it's gonna work. And then if it works and I can see there the class on the editor, then I'm going to see. I copy one stuff at a time, probably. Because I think that the problem is, like, it's too slow, and I'm not gonna be able, like, it's too slow and kind of risky to copy one by one. So like one approach is to get each class there from the roots, like the entry, which is this function here. Based on the type of the variant, is gonna select what kind of class is gonna use to create the control node that is related to that type. So I can start from this point here, and then for each, yeah, but basically I have all the types there. That's so I can break down this. Like one approach is break down each class, then convert each class so that it works there. And then after that, I create another class that is gonna use all the properties in the same way that they use, and then I just change the functionality. And the other approach is to start from the top, which is to try to copy the other class. But I think it makes a lot more sense to do this approach here. And so probably this is the best. So I just try to convert one by one. Then I get the class to a state that I think it works there. And then for each, I do the same process for each one. So probably what I should do is just create another folder, actually. Because it's gonna be, and this is like kind of what I was trying to avoid, because it's gonna be more annoying, I think, if but I don't think there's another way to do it. So for each one that they have there, what I need to do is just create, like find the base class that they have related to that class, then create another class that inherits from the class. And basically I'm just transferring the stuff that they did on the editor to my own class. And then the main thing that is gonna change is the way that the class handles the state. So after I have a class for each properties, I can just, yeah, because the thing that is going to change on the other one is that I'm not going to be Or maybe I should use a function the same way that they do there. I'm not sure. Yeah, so. So probably, yeah, I'm not gonna do it this one. I'm gonna create another folder. So let me think about the name of the folder. Because initially I was gonna test on this one, but I think it doesn't make a lot of sense. Because if I have to create one class for each thing, then it makes more sense to put everything on a container, on a folder. And then I just, for each class that I have there, I just transfer them one by one. So I'm just gonna do the class already, like with the name. And then I transfer like from small pieces. And I think that's gonna be very good because it's also gonna make me understand a lot more how they thought about when they were designing this and how the GUI interacts with the rendering system, which is something that it's not very clear still on my mind, because the parts of I have the flowcharts there that they provide, but it is still very confusing to understand, like the relationship between the different levels, because you have the servers and then you have the drivers. And you have the rendering classes, and each one of those classes is going to have abstractions. I just have to find where did I put this stuff, because I have so many things now. There's some stuff on Vulkan. It's just the dog pictures. I think this is one of them. So I have the core, the scene, the servers, and the drivers. So rendering server is the one that they use all the time. On the array mesh, they also use rendering server. So obviously I assume that rendering server is going to be related to rendering. So I think rendering server is the thing that's probably connects with the shaders directly. But these kinds of things I have to clarify more on how it works. And there is another one here, I think, that was better. Yeah, this one. So I have the rendering server. I have the viewports. So I think that's this is probably the flowchart from like the initialization. Like when you're interacting with the editor or the engine, you're going from the top, which is the bottom on this chart here, I think, through the rendering server. I'm not really sure though. That makes sense. So probably the rendering server talks to the rendering device. And the rendering device is the class that manages there's this display server. The display server manages the rendering device, I think. If I remember from the setup function, that's how it works. So the display server is the class that initializes the window using the Windows API. And then it's going to initialize this rendering device class, which is an abstract class that, depending on what kind of driver you are going to use, so what kind of framework, Vulkan, OpenGL, or this DX12 or WebGPU is going to. So the rendering device is the base class. The other classes are abstract classes that inherit. The other classes are derived classes from this abstract class that implement the functionality for that specific driver. So they are initialized inside of the display server. So I think that the display server has to be, I guess this is the part that's kind of confusing because here it doesn't show, but it's understandable because there's so many things. But I think I have to clarify these parts and how the display server and how does rendering classes also connect with the shaders. Basically the whole pipeline. But I think the main one that is used is canvas item that I've seen. So the canvas item class usually is going to make calls to the rendering server. And then the rendering server is going to implement stuff probably directly on the shaders that are going to probably communicate with the display server somewhere. But it's, yeah. So let me think about this. So let me go back to the what I'm gonna do is just copy the constructor there, the stuff that I have, the member variables, and then I'm gonna look into each function, copy one by one, and then think about what is happening. So I need to clarify the connection of everything. It's a great exercise. Actually, I think probably the rendering server makes calls to the display server, because now I remember when I was studying the export pipeline there is a function at some point that is gonna, I think is on the pop-up. So the pop-up control node is gonna call a function at some point that uses the display server class to show things. So I think the display server is the main thing main class that is used to actually draw on the screen. But probably the rendering server communicates with the display server. Rendering server. Yeah, a lock command, I think it comes from Vulkan. So in Vulkan, you have commands and you have queues. And I think that each command is put into a queue, and then you have to synchronize the queues. So basically, Vulkan is an evolution of OpenGL, which is just making the gradient more complex. So in OpenGL, for example, you have the double buffering technique, which is that you have two different images, and you paint on one image and you show the other image. And then once one image is ready, you swap them. That's called double buffering. And on Vulkan is basically the same idea, but instead of two images, you have a gradient, which is called the swap chain, which means you can have multiple different images. And this creates, this optimizes how fast things are shown, because you're able to show many images, like a gradient of images, instead of just swapping when the image is fully ready, I think. And on top of that, you're gonna have the queues, which are the stuff that is used, which is the stuff that is used to determine what's gonna happen, I think. So you also have I forgot the name of the thing, but it's basically the same as it is on OpenGL, where you have parts, some classes that I forgot the name, that are gonna allow you to determine how the buffers are gonna be read. And I think the commands are the stuff that's, so first you set up the buffers, and then you use the commands to read and write from the buffers, I think. And the queues are gonna determine because it's multi-threaded, I think. So it's gonna allow you to read the buffers from multiple different threads, and then you have to synchronize them. So I do think that this is related to Vulkan, but I'm not really sure. This is another part that's kind of complicated to understand, because you can have multiple different frameworks, so. I think this class probably just encapsulates the data used at some point on the server by Vulkan to actually write this stuff. Yeah, so primitive obviously is going to be determining what kind of. So this is also about the rendering pipeline, which I think you can have 3 types of different primitives, and it depends on the framework, I think. But I do remember seeing that there is some situations where people allow you to use more complex, which is basically using the geometry shader. So you can build more complex geometry, but I do remember that I think but it's probably not the standard. You have one more type of primitive, which is more complex than a triangle, but usually it's going to be just a dot or a line, or it's going to be a triangle. And the problem with the line is that it's not really, it doesn't allow you to have thickness, because thickness would make it more complex because it's a geometry. That's why when you do a line on 3D, you can't really use this line, because this line has limits on how thick it can be, which is based by the GPU and the rendering pipeline. So usually it's going to be a triangle, the way that everything is drawn, because like triangle is the most complex, I think. It's the simplest geometry, but it's the most complex you can get to encapsulate the logic that is going to determine what thing shows in front of the other thing, and yeah, which is going to be based from the barycentric coordinates of the circle in the edge function. So the edge function determines what pixels are inside or outside of each triangle. And I think it's the simplest one and most complex at the same time. They're able to use to draw stuff, because you only draw one point at a time, obviously. And I think polygons are usually like another structure, which is basically a collection of 2 different triangles that makes up a quad, and then a collection of quads allows you to create a mesh, which allows you to create surfaces. So I think for more. But I'm not 100% sure about the polygon one, but I do think that it's something like that. Because obviously it makes more sense, and it's easier to think about the geometries as surfaces that you're using. And this is the whole point of the discrete differential geometry stuff. Just the study of surfaces on 2D. And also topology is another fundamental thing about this, because topology is the part of mathematics that studies the structure of space, as far as I understand now. Also, I think that the buffer is going to be a data structure that is going to be used to determine. It's just like in the same way you have an OpenGL. We have GL buffer data and GL sub buffer data, which are functions used to set up or to make buffer calls, I think. So the structure of the buffer is going to be determined by GL attribute vertex pointer, for example. And you obviously, so yeah, the GPU uses the buffer to draw stuff. So I think that on the right here is probably allowing you to set up the stuff that is going to be written to the buffer. Vertex buffer creates. So it's handled by the RD. this basically would be like the same stuff that happens on OpenGL when you. I think that on OpenGL, like it depends on the way that you want to do it. But if you're not going to update the geometry later, the nature of the geometry, then you can set up the buffer only once and reuse that. But if you sometimes depends on what kind of application or what kind of framework you're using. Sometimes they use gel buffer data inside of the rendering cycle because it's easier to do it this way, because every time that you change the nature of the vertices from the geometry, you have to update the buffer, I think, the buffer data. So that means you have to put it on the rendering cycle, or you need to do some logic that determines that if you change this stuff, then you just redo the buffer data. But sometimes it's outside as well. So I think that the R&D is probably the class that is going to manage this stuff, and it's connected to this. So like I think that the canvas item is the lowest level, but most abstract, let's say, like the entry point for dealing with everything that is related to the rendering system. And then these classes are going to be, the structures are going to be the ones that are used to set up the buffers. And then probably those classes are going to interact with the rendering server or something like that at some point. Sure. This part I still haven't seen, because I do remember going over the parts on the display server and stuff like that on the when Vulkan or when the Godot sets everything up. So I do remember doing flowcharts for the classes that are gonna set up the state for Vulkan. So that's like the physical device and the logical device, I think, as well. Just basically abstractions that are gonna allow Vulkan to allow you to create buffer, which is a buffer is just a space in memory, and to determine how to create queues and the image pipeline as well to determine what's going to show. But I haven't seen from the high level, let's say, from these classes, the connection between the moment that these classes use the Vulkan stuff to actually draw, and also the shaders as well, like the shader selection. But these are things that I want to clarify as well. And based on the name, it's probably creating the lines based on this. And creating the buffers that have the vertices that contain a line from the polygon. I think it's swap chain, the name of the thing on Vulkan. Swap chain. Not double buffering, but the way that they update the image. Let me go back to this. So I'm gonna copy this stuff here. I'm gonna copy the properties first. Control. Yeah, the only one that I think, yeah, this is kind of the problem. So let me change the names here first. So I'm gonna put have to think about a name for a folder. Then I'm gonna put the classes on the folder. So anything that is not related to the editor, I have to create a new class, and then everything that the engine already has, which is the class CB, I'm just gonna inherit from it, or just use the same actually. What can be a good name for this? Maybe custom GUI properties. I'm just gonna leave it like this. So I'm gonna change this one first, just see if it's gonna compile. And so I'm gonna leave the other one as it is there. It's probably better. So instead of changing this one, I'm gonna leave this one as it was before. I'm gonna just create other classes because it's gonna be easier. So for each thing that I create there, I'm just gonna test to see how it looks on the editor. Then I convert one by one. Then once I convert all of them, then I change this one so that they use the other ones instead. Because the other ones are gonna be the base blocks. So each one that has the type there, based on the editor, is gonna be the base of the thing. Then the other ones are just gonna be compositions of the building blocks. And I do think that it makes sense to leave this one here because so I'm gonna, on this custom properties GUI folder, I'm just gonna put all the classes related to each property, the control node of each property, and the main class that is gonna be the one that is generic, which I'm not really sure if I'm gonna do it or not, but I'm gonna see if it's not that hard. I'm probably gonna try to do it, which is gonna be the class that is the same that they have there, that allows you to, based on the class B, probably it gets the state of the class based on the class B from the type. So you pass the name to a function that is gonna get the type from the class B. And then you get all the properties and the methods from the class using class B as well. And you basically reconstruct the type of the class based on its name from the GUI. Then you use that to change the state of the class. But I guess this is the part that would be different, because the classes that I have to see, but maybe it would be the same actually. So the connection is the thing that is not clear yet, because the component that they have there, it also changes the classes. It also changes the class on the visualization. But I haven't seen, because I think what makes up the visualization on the editor is a plugin that they have, and the plugin is kind of more confusing to understand what is going on, because it depends on you can't really look directly on the source code, because it depends on the runtime state. So I'm gonna try to compile here and test on the editor. Then if it works, I'm gonna change the name of this one. And for each one, so I wonder if I can. The problem is I'm not gonna be able to put the same name probably, or if the name of the file in the same way that the editor already has. So I have to think about different names as well. Maybe I just put a prefix. I don't like using namespaces too much because it overly complicates things, I think. This error is usually no. This error is probably because of multiple definitions or something related to the include, which is a part that's kind of annoying. And the other ones I'm using the same. I think it is the same name here. Oh, I think it's because of the, I have to add this. I didn't add here. This one also has a config by. Do I need this one? I thought it might be because I have to, but maybe I do. Yeah, here. So I need to, this is the file from the build system on Godot. So Godot uses scones, and the way that the scones works is that you have the sconstruct file at the root, and it's kind of like it's the same logic. Like it works as a Python code, but it doesn't have the Python extension for whatever reason. It's just the way that scones works. And then here, whenever you want to add a new Python script, let's say, to the build system, you just use the sconstruct call here. And then whatever file you put here is just going to read this file as if it was a Python file as well. And it's going to add the functionality to the build system. And then on the documentation, when you're creating a module, they tell you to put the file here on top of the module. And then you have two different options, which is either you create another SC sub file for every subfolder you're going to use, and then you just add more code to add the source files from the subfolder, or you just do this where you add the relative path from here. I don't remember which one the other ones usually use. So I think these other ones probably, they do the same thing, yeah. So here they add everything from SC sub, but from the main engine code, they usually they're gonna put, because I think that they do it like this because there's a bunch of different files. So for each main thing that they have on the engine, they're also gonna have a SC sub for the folder. So that way that like they compartmentalize everything. So each main folder, I think, from the engine has its own SC sub, which is inserted there on the main sconstruct file. So I'm gonna test like this. So if this works then on the editor as well, then I'm gonna see if I need, because I think I did this by mistake and I just forgot to delete. This here, this comes from the documentation as well that they tell you to do. Or maybe actually, oh no, this is outside, so yeah. So yeah, it probably should be there. I thought there was true for some reason. But I do think that is correct, probably. I forgot to put a timer for a break. So I do think... I'm not really sure if I should stop after the break. We're gonna stop and come back. I think it's gear experiments. Oh, there's also another thing that I remember. I think whenever you want to shoot the items on a scene, 3D scene, you tell you choose canvas layer, but I don't remember if it's canvas layer or something else that you choose. So sim is working. So it's canvas layer. Independent rendering. So I think that's how you usually do it, and then you put as children of the... Yeah. Let me see if this is gonna fuck anything up there. So the most annoying thing you should think about... this is weird. I do think it changed the visualization. Or maybe because... No, but... Let me remove this. Let's see if it works for this. The most annoying thing is just figure out or to think about each name that I'm gonna have to change there. Probably... So as I was saying, I want to avoid using namespaces because I think it just becomes more annoying and more space for errors. So I prefer to use a prefix, which is not that good if you have like a... If you're building something for like a library or something like that you think a lot of people are going to use, then it's probably better to use a namespace. But I think for this situation, I think it does make sense to just create nodes based on a prefix. So there's something going on. I think it's because of the anchor here. I don't understand what this is very well. I've seen on some videos, but I don't remember. But I'm not really sure if this has to do... Because it seems that... So I'm gonna try to delete and then add. Because I don't think that it has to do with the class that I added now. There's something weird going on because it's not showing the... Like it's not zooming out. That's weird. Now let me try to delete this one. And see if it fixes. It should zoom out. I didn't change anything on the camera as far as I remember. So it should zoom out very far from the scene. So the only explanation, if it's not because of this, a GUI element, it should be because of the new class. Yeah, this is weird. Or maybe it's because I changed. No, but it shouldn't be this anyway. Because it should be... I don't think I changed the camera before. So what I'm going to try to do is just to comment out the class there and see if you fix this. Yeah, there's something weird going on. It might be because of the level of the things. Because the module that I have here, I'm using the level as the scene. And this class probably... Yeah, but now I'm using container. So container should be part of the scene, I think. So let me comment out here first. I'll just comment out here, here. Oh, it might be because of, yeah, it's because of this. No, but that doesn't make a lot of sense because... But I'm gonna come back to the other way. Because I removed that from the visualization, it still was messed up. Mm. I'm just gonna ask ChatGPT about the canvas layer thing. And obviously I can watch videos later. It's not that big of a deal. But I'm more curious about what is going on there, because it seems that even after I save the scene, removing this stuff, it's not zooming the correct way. And I don't remember, I don't think I changed the camera class. I did change this one, but I didn't change the zoom stuff. Hmm. This is very weird. It might be the position of the camera. I don't remember if I changed. I might have changed the position of this thing. But it's still kind of weird. Hmm. And because basically the way that I'm doing the zoom is just the way that they do it on the editor as well. So I think I might have changed the position. That's why it's kind of feeling weird there. But it's basically this function. One thing that I can do is just change the near and far here. But I think it's probably, so like there's two different approaches. One is to change the position of the camera. The other one is to change the zoom. But for setting the position of the camera, I'm probably going to do it from the headless thing. And I'm going to put a default value. So I think that it's just the position that I changed there probably. It is changing the way that it's looking when you zoom in and out. So I don't think it's the canvas layer or the other class. It's kind of hard because I can't really see in what direction it is there. That's probably easiest to just change here. I don't know. I should be, I think, facing that direction. But I'm not really sure. I guess the easiest thing to do is to delete and put again on the center. And then do this. Let's see now. Yeah. It's just the position of the camera. I think it, no, but this is kind of weird as well. Oh, but I think it's fine, yeah, it's fine. So I think I moved the position of the visualization at some points. The label is kind of weird now. It's not showing the label. So it might be something else that I changed. It's obviously very easy to fix. Yeah, because I think that the labels don't exist here now. So it's probably when I was changing everything else that I forgot to. But I was pretty sure the last time that I saw this that I had the labels. So I'm just gonna have to see again. Yeah, but I think it's not the canvas layer the problem. So I'm gonna put the canvas layer again, then put the stuff there. I'm gonna look into the labels now as well, just see if I forgot to do something or change something. And that's the reason why it's not showing there. Oh, so now it's showing the label. It's just behind the thing. I guess it's because of the direction of the camera then. Huh. Yeah, because now the label is behind the... Oh, but that's kind of weird, because on the other one it's supposed to... Like here is supposed to be showing when I rotate. So there's something weird going on. Might have to do with the canvas layer, but no, I think it has, because the canvas layer was there before. It wasn't there, and it still wasn't showing. So what the fuck's going on? Because I think I put something related to billboarding on the label, so that is always facing the camera. So it might be because of this, the direction of the camera and the position of the label. Or it might be because I changed the way that I'm setting the position, I think. Oh, I think it's because when... Yeah, I'm not updating the position of the label. That's the problem. So after I did the physics stuff, I think I forgot to, because on the force I'm not. Yeah, because I didn't forget. It's just that I wasn't sure. So the way that I'm doing the label is I'm setting the label position on the, but I'm not really sure if that's like if it should be a problem. But I'm setting the position on the class itself, the definition of the class. Or the declaration of the class. Let's see here. So on the way that I understand, the label position is an offset from the position dance of the parent, which is going to be the node. So I'm adding the nodes here. So I'll add the node as a child, and then initialize the label here. And then I add as a child of the graph node 3D. Set this billboard mode, and set the position with label position. And this is the one that, like, the way that I thought it was gonna work, that it was working, is that this is an offset position from the mesh instance 3D. So from whatever the parent is, I think. But maybe when I update the position of the force, I need to refresh this for whatever reason. So I think it's apply force or whatever. Yeah, apply gravitational force. Initialize label. Let's see if I do this, if it's gonna work. But I'm not gonna focus, I'm just gonna write this stuff here. because I was gonna change the position anyway, the size and stuff like that. It's obviously more important to be able to, I don't know what's going on. Is insert, yeah. So it's more important to be able to put a component that is gonna allow for customization of everything than to set the default values now, because I think that as long as you have the option to customize, this is another thing I'm gonna have to see, which is saving. I'm gonna look into the saving first before I look into animation, because I think it's more important. Like when you put, because I'm gonna have customizations there, so obviously I want to add the option to save the whatever parameters you have. But it's probably gonna be just caching on the file, obviously. So I have to use the file system from Godot to be able to read and write from file settings, probably. I'm gonna, because this stuff is weird, I'm just gonna write here. Yeah, so I'm not gonna do this now. I'm just gonna leave it like this and uncomment the stuff there. And this one I'm gonna leave it like it was before. I'm just gonna put here again and also here. So after I check this one, I'm going to change the name and then just transfer this stuff here to there. And then probably, so I'm gonna start from this one, because this one is the one that's, for this one I should just do the same constructor there. So I'm probably gonna create 2 different classes now, but I'm gonna start converting this one. The range, I'm pretty sure that is a class from a scene. So they're just applying customization for the range based on this class here. So I'm gonna see, the thing is, I have to see if this class is gonna interact with the other stuff from the editor. Just probably going to interact. If it does interact, then I have to change, I think. If it doesn't, then it might be just easier to copy everything. It's weird that this one, so I'm gonna have, because as far as I remember, you can't really use these classes there on the editor. So I'm not really sure why, if they are registered, if that one specifically is registered. And it still doesn't show any label. But this is because this one, no, but it is on the normal now. It should be displaying the label though. It might be somewhere else that I'm forgetting to. Oh, so it's behind the thing. Oh, it's probably just because I have to put minus something. But this is kind of problematic. But I think it's not that hard to solve, probably. Because because the label billboards, it means that it's always facing the camera, but if I put a fixed position there, I have to make sure that regardless of where the camera is at, it's going to be relatively easier to see. But I think it's just changing the position there, so it shouldn't be that hard, I think. And in here, this is the weird thing for me, is that it's not showing the editor stuff here. So it might be because, yeah, I think it's just because it doesn't register the class, because these classes are, but they should inherit from object, I think. So it is kind of weird. It's weird because it is subscribing the class here to class on class DB, and it's still not showing there. But obviously, I think that if you put the, or it might be because it's related to other stuff from the editor. This might be the problem. So they do it this way so that it doesn't show there. Which probably means that I'm gonna have to change this class, which feels kind of redundant because like I'm mostly gonna copy everything. But I do think I need to figure out. So the main thing is figuring out what parts here are related to the editor, and if I can remove them or change them. So I think that what this function is doing is just parsing the text inputs. So I think I probably, yeah, I probably can copy this one, just setting the inputs there on the range. So this is the one that allows you to update the range based on the whatever you put there. So the other thing I was gonna see is the other class here. I'm gonna change the relative position of the node, the label, just see if it works. But here I think it is working. So now I'm just gonna think about the names of the classes to start translating. So this one, like maybe just puts minus 1.5. Just put true here. Yeah, I think that the reason why it doesn't show even when you rotate the camera is because of the billboarding. So depending on the initial position, it's not going to show if it's behind the node. It only shows if you go over it. Yeah. So I think this is kind of the thing that is not very annoying, but kind of annoying, because depending on the initial position of the camera, it's going to affect the default position of the label. So it doesn't matter if you rotate the camera, because if you put it on the wrong position, it's never going to show. But I think that as long as I always do the camera position by default should be on the correct place relative to the label position, is not going to be a problem. And also on top of that, add the ability to customize. But obviously when I have good defaults, and also allow customization. So I'm gonna leave it like this. So and now just think about the name and then start translating. So I'm gonna be right back as I think about this. Probably is a good time to take a break. I think I'm just gonna take a break and keep going instead of doing 2 streams. It's easier, so I'm probably gonna do half an hour of break, and as I think about the name, because it's kind of annoying, it's not that interesting. But I basically need to think about because they don't expose this class on the editor. I imagine that there's something here probably that is related to the editor, and maybe this stuff or stuff like this that is directly related to the editor, which means that it's probably not a good idea to try to put this class, like just inherit from this class on the other one, because I'm gonna run into the same problem as when I try to inherit from the other one, which is you're just gonna have a dangling pointer or something like that, because the module, whatever you put here is only gonna register the classes when the build system is for that level of initialization. So I think the editor is the highest level. So it's probably better to make sure that you on your module you don't need the editor build, because the editor build is going to require you to build everything that's useful on the editor, which is not going to be useful for this stuff we were doing, obviously. So that means it's probably not a very good idea to just copy everything straight up. So just inherit from the class and just do basically the same thing, which means I'm probably going to have to do stuff that is redundant, which is just to like copy part by part from the class here. And that means that I have to change the name as well. So probably I think the easiest thing to do is just to, instead of using editor, I just use BH or BM, something like that, which is just the prefix of the module that I have there. I think that's probably a good idea. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So for each class, I'm just going to change from editor to BM, and it's going to make it easier to also know which one is which. Once it gets to the point where I'm going to put classes together to create more complex components, but I'm going to have to change slowly one at a time. So I'm just going to do BM slider. I'm going to do another one here, and BM slider, because the other one is going to have the default values. So the other one is going to be the one that is going to use the BM slider. And for each one of these, I'm also going to have to register there on the types. So it probably doesn't make sense. I'm going to close these ones because I'm not going to change them anymore. And I'm going to leave the register types open here, so that's each one I can add here. I think it's just like one thing I can do is to put a generic header on this thing here and then just include everything else. But I think it's just more like simple and easier to understand if I just manually put each class here. And it's also, yeah, it's the same thing to change, I think, but it's just cleaner to understand if I just put one by one here instead of putting another header. But maybe it's better to put it, because then I can encapsulate everything on one thing. And then I don't have to. But the thing is, I'm gonna have to like specify them here. So I think it's better to just specify each one here. I'm just gonna put the name of the thing here. BM slider. Or it's actually it's BM spin slider. Spin slider. There was something to a macro to change for capitalize, but I don't remember. Let's see. Property using. I should probably do both of them. Maybe. No. So this. So both caps lock. Or well, let me see if I. So I think we're gonna stop here, and then take a break off string, then I come back today. I might not come back, but I'm probably gonna come back today. So I'm gonna take a half an hour or something like that break now. And the next thing that we're gonna do is just to slowly copy this one. So I'm gonna start, like I said, with this one. And then I'm gonna have to spend time studying to understand how it works. But I'm probably just gonna copy one thing at a time. So copy, then test to see if it works. And like incrementally copy everything and then keep testing to see if it works on the editor. And then maybe try to change some stuff to see how it changes there, the functionality. So the main thing that I have to do is decouple the class from the functionality from the editor and couple with the thing that I'm trying to do there, which is gonna be to change the value of properties on the application. So this is the main thing to understand, I think. It's like how these classes are connected with the values of the classes that they reflect on the editor. So every time you change a property on the editor, like this class, I think represents the slider you have there for float values. So when you change the value of this one, it changes the property on the node, on the scene that you have there, which is managed by the editor, obviously. So I have to figure out where is the distinction there, how the classes, the moment that they connect with the classes from the editor, and then see if I have to change the way that it works so that it works on my use case there. And then for each one, I'm going to translate, and then I'm going to see, like, based on the geometries that I have there, which is just a sphere, the Bezier curve, and the arrow, if I can change the values using this stuff here. So just change this class enough so that they change the values that I have on the application there. And then I'm going to do this one by one, each class. Then once I have all of them, then I'm going to think about whether or not it's worth it to incorporate or to change the class that is going to allow me to manage or to update any property of any class in the same way that they do on the editor there by combining these classes. So probably see you soon. And if not, I'm probably going to come back tomorrow. But I'm probably going to come back today after half an hour. So see you soon.